Welcome to this deep dive.
Hello.
Today we're digging into a company you might not know by name, but they're massive in the cycling world.
Yeah, we're talking about Airdawn, or Marwi Group.
Exactly. They specialize in bicycle pedals and saddles, key components.
And we've been looking at various reports, some media coverage too, trying to piece together their strategy.
Right. Our goal is really to unpack what makes them a leader, how they're changing things up, and, what that tells us about manufacturing today.
Okay, so let's get into it. Marwi Group, founded in Taiwan, way back in 1983.
And they really honed in on pedals and saddles from the start.
Yeah, and here's where it gets, well, pretty interesting. Their dominance in the pedal market, especially in Europe.
The numbers are really something. Sources put their European market share somewhere between, 55% and maybe even over 70%.
That's huge. Think about the scale. Globally, the estimate is over 100 million people have probably ridden a bike using their pedals.
Wow. And it's not just a Taiwan operation, is it? They're global.
Definitely. They've got facilities in the Netherlands, the Czech Republic, Germany, also Indonesia and the U.S., besides Taiwan.
And that European presence seems critical. I saw mentions of a just-in-time system.
Exactly. For rapid delivery within Europe, something like a 72-hour supply capability. It's quite efficient.
So the picture we're getting for these sources is they're not just stamping out parts. They're like a crucial link in the whole bicycle supply chain.
Particularly vital for that European market, it seems.
Okay, but they're not just resting on that success, right? The sources talk a lot about transformation.
Oh, yeah. A big push. There's this figure, over 500 million new Taiwan dollars invested into a smart factory.
And the tech involved sounds pretty advanced. AI vision, IoT.
And a significant number of robots. One report mentioned 41 robots for, around 150 employees in that specific factory?
So it's not just adding a few machines. It sounds like a fundamental shift in how they make things.
Precisely. And the impact. Reports say it's tripled their pedal production capacity.
Tripled.
But maybe just as important, it gives them flexibility. They can handle smaller, more customized orders now, apparently much more efficiently.
That agility is key these days, isn't it?
Absolutely. It shows how even established manufacturers can adapt using tech.
And it's not just the digital side. Sustainability seems to be a big focus, too.
Yes, very much so. They've got a dedicated ESG team and a really ambitious goal for carbon neutrality.
By 2040, right? It seems quite early.
It is. It's a full decade ahead of the wider industry alliance target, which is 2050.
So how are they tackling that?
Well, the sources mentioned tracking greenhouse gases, calculating product carbon footprints, adding solar power. I think I saw a 170 kilowatt system mentioned. Plus, they're part of that Bicycling Alliance for Sustainability.
Makes sense. But there's always the tricky part.
Scope 3 emissions, yeah. The emissions from their suppliers, that's a common challenge. And the reports acknowledge it's complex for them, too.
It's a huge hurdle for almost everyone trying to go green.
Definitely.
Now, what about leadership? Does that play into this?
Seems like it. The founder, Patrick Pai, was apparently an early believer in automation.
Okay.
And now his daughter, Coco Pai, is president. And she is described as really driving both the smart factory initiatives and these sustainability goals.
So a clear line of succession there, focused on, the future.
Exactly. Future-proofing the company. All these moves, the tech investments, the early carbon targets, they position MRWI not just to meet current customer demands, but also perhaps for things like a potential IPO down the line, as some sources hint.
Right. So putting it all together, MRI Group looks like a really compelling example. A traditional manufacturer, deep expertise.
But actively reinventing itself, using smart tech, committing seriously to sustainability. They're not standing still.
Yeah, it shows how established players can really leverage what they know while embracing what's next to stay on top globally.
Which leads to a pretty interesting point to think about, doesn't it? Well, given how critical Scope 3 emissions are, supplier emissions often being the biggest chunk, how can a leader like MRWI really push its entire supply chain, especially maybe smaller partners, to meet such ambitious green targets that are ahead of the curve?
That's the big question, isn't it? What responsibility do they have, and how do they actually make it happen across potentially hundreds of suppliers?
Yeah, what's the balance between setting the standard and, actually helping everyone else get there? Something for you to consider.